Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Reverend Lee Paxula. Can you hear me all right? Yeah, there we go. Good afternoon. Welcome. My name is Reverend Lee Paxula, and I am blessed to have been Lois's minister here for nearly a decade. In our community, we mark the beginning and the ending of a sacred time together by lighting a flame within a chalice. It's a symbol of our faith. For us, the flame symbolizes the light of God, of the divine, the spark of life that is found in each person. And that cup below the flame, holding it, the circles around it, these represent our communities, our friends, and our loved ones, the mystery of this larger life that holds us all. At the beginning of each of our lives, a kind of flame is sparked within each one of us. A unique spirit is breathed into us, granting us the gift of some time on this earth. And at the end of every life, that breath of spirit leaves our bodies here and returns to the earth, the air, and the water, to all that is around and beyond us from which we came. And so as the service begins, we light this chalice to honor the great and glorious crackling spark that was the life of Lois Ann Neal Lutz. And this afternoon, as we stay in this space together remembering her, may we, this community that is gathered here in person, and also this community that is gathered from great distances, wherever we physically may be, may we hold space together for the stories and the memories and the meaning of Lois's life in this time together. This afternoon, we've asked Lois's beloved son-in-law, Pete Higgins, to come forward and light our chalice as we begin. Thank you, Pete. And I'll invite our musicians now to join us on stage so that we can begin to settle into this time together in song.
I got troubles, Lord, but not today, 'cause they gonna wash away, they gonna wash away. I got sins, Lord, but not today, 'cause they gonna wash away, they gonna wash away. Crying today, 'cause we gonna wash away, we gonna wash away. I got troubles, Lord, but not today, 'cause they gonna wash away. This old river's gonna take them away.
Shadows are falling and I'm running out of breath. Keep me in your heart for a while. If I leave you, it doesn't mean I love you any less. Keep me in your heart for a while. When you get up in the morning, you see that crazy sun, keep me in your heart for a while. There's a train leaving nightly, caught when all is said and done. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-lo. Heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-lo. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sometimes when you're doing simple things around the house, maybe you'll think of me and smile. You know I'm tied to you like the buttons on your blouse. Keep me in your heart for a while. Hold me in your thoughts, take me to your dreams, touch me as I fall into view. When the winter comes, keep the fires lit, I will be right next to you. Engine drivers headed north to Pleasant Stream, keep me in your heart for a while. These wheels keep on turning, but they're running out of steam. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-lo. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-lo. Keep me in your heart for a while. Keep me in your heart for a while.
Thank you all.
Lois Lutz was a dear friend and the most
Oh, not quite. There we go. So, this right here might be my microphone that is on. Got it? All right. This may be a personal bias of mine, but I have often felt that a big and complicated family tree is a sign of a life well and fully lived. And Lois's family spans blood and marriages and remarriages and multiple states. And so, as you will hear in a moment, she welcomes so many people into her circle of family all throughout her life. And her circle includes not just me, but 4 to 5 ordained clergy in different religions who are all here today. And so there are 2 other folks with reverend or rabbi in front of their names who knew and loved Lois and want to share in the honor of remembering and celebrating her life today. The first will be Reverend Mary Higgins. Reverend Mary Higgins is part of Lois's family, but could not be with us in person today. So in just a moment, you will see her offer some words in remembrance on the screen behind me. And after Reverend Higgins shares her words, Rabbi Peter Grumbacher will take the stage here in this room to share a remembrance of his own. Go ahead.
Lois Lutz was a dear friend and the most vibrant woman I knew. Lois became a part of my family more than 30 years ago. She was one of those people who showed up for everything she was invited to for most of those 30 years. She came to parties, birthdays, graduation, and Christmas festivities with regularity. She welcomed my 2 children into her circle of care, and as babies and grandchildren came to the scene, there was Lois. She held her arms out and welcomed each one. It seemed as if she did not think of them as anything but her grandchildren. They were never strangers. They were never the other. My grandkids called her Granny Lutz, and she never failed to show up with some treasure from her own life to give them as a way of remembering her or giving them something of herself or times gone by. Sometimes it was a little figurine or a vase or a beautiful rock with a story to tell from her voracious rock hunting days with her husband Alton. As I understand it, Lois's ability to open her arms and welcome into them anyone in need was a lifelong part of her personality. She did that for family members when times were tough, but she did that for others too. She had a lot to give, not just a place to stay in her home, but abundant love to share and sheltering arms to keep others safe for a time. There was nothing old or stodgy about Lois. She was 98 when she died, but her mind was mature and decades younger than her body. Lois was mentally vibrant and active. I think as her hearing got worse and worse, though, she often felt isolated as she could no longer enjoy all the hoopla in our collective lives. It has been a few years now when she could not come to the parties and celebration. Her hearing seemed to make the sounds a jumble and a din, more confusing than helpful. Without being able to understand, this isolated her. I missed her at our gatherings. Lois lived with her daughter Kathleen and her husband Pete. She told me once that the most difficult event that she ever had to face was the unexpected death of her daughter Julian. That was not the right order of things, she said. Kathleen, Julian, and their brother Jonathan were her 3 children. Lois's mind kept the events of her life in impeccable order. She could tell wonderful stories about spending time with Christine's boys, J.P., Duncan, and Liam, as they grew. And when Molly Rose was born, she was swept into that all-encompassing Lois hug as well. Lois kept saying that she was ready to die. I remember once saying to her, "Well, Lois, you've been saying that since you began to lose your hearing years ago. What's holding you back? Is there anything you need to do before you die, or any conversation you need to have with anyone? She looked at me and said with a straight face, "Not any that I can talk about out loud." Intriguing, I thought, very intriguing. That was Lois. I asked her what she thought would happen to her when she died. I paraphrase her answer as, "I'll just float away on a cloud." She did not think she was going to be reunited in death with anyone, but she said she was up to being surprised. We can all pay close attention to the signs around us, for if there is a good and lively gathering in the afterlife, I expect she will be trying her best to let us know. Reading was a big escape for Lois, but to be sure, I believe there was no question you could ask her that she was at a loss to talk about, as though she had been thinking about it and had a very detailed and thoughtful response that would come back to you. As the hospice chaplain visited her, he asked if she had any worries about dying. Her response was typically Lois: "No, I'm just afraid it won't happen." She was more ready than we were. Her wit, no-nonsense twinkle is gone from our daily life, but not from the heart, where I believe we have eternal life for as long as we remember the love, loss, joy, sorrow, and special being of our dear friend Lois Lutz. Rest in peace, dear one. Rest in peace. Lois.
I'll take the higher one. Thank you. Testing. Can you hear me? I'm really flattered and honored to be a part of this gathering, and it's good to be able to connect faces and names that I've heard for quite a number of years, especially those who are live streaming. I recognize you all now. Every week, synagogues around the world read a portion from the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. And we begin with the book of Exodus on a holiday in early autumn. And on the same holiday, 1 year later, we read the last verses of Deuteronomy and immediately begin the first few verses of Genesis. There's never a gap in our cycle of Torah readings. When each of the books is completed, we recite a formula which, translated from the Hebrew, reads, be strong, and let us strengthen each other. Having completed the book of Numbers yesterday, congregants once again recited that phrase. What does it mean? We have an expression I find to be relevant across the board. If there are 10 Jews in a room, there are 11 opinions. It's true with the formula as it is with the most basic aspects of Jewish thought and theology. And I guess that's why we've been around for a couple of thousand years. We argue a lot. I've always felt it means that each book of the Torah gives us strength from the unique message we read each week. And that's the first, be strong. And the second one reflects how each of us integrates those messages into our lives and does his or her best to reflect them every day. And the third, let us strengthen each other, is a challenge, as it were, for each of us as role models to guide others in their lives with Scripture as our basis. Of course, I'm reflecting on the uniqueness of one of the most wonderful people that I have ever met. And this is not hyperbole or baloney. Every time we parted company, most often at our memoir sessions, I'd come home and tell Susie, my wife, something about Lois just gives me a boost to look forward to tomorrow. She epitomizes hope and optimism. That's the strength that I got from her. And as far as the integration of that message into my life, the second, be strong, I can't but help look for more and more challenges even at my age. Heck, I think if Lois could do all those things and communicate them so clearly and purposefully, so can I. I always felt that her deeds of long ago, her exciting hobbies, her impact on family and friends were not frozen in time. They may have happened in her youth, but in my eyes and heart, at 98, she was still a kid with a glint in her eye. Like the little engine that could, with Lois in my focus, I can too. This thing keeps going down and down. Whew. Let us strengthen each other. That's okay, I'm almost done. Let us strengthen each other, the third phrase of the formula. If I'm wrong, well, I'm not wrong. Lois was a source of strength for many, many people. And while I did not know any more of her family other than Pete and Kathleen until today, I don't believe I need to have known any others to feel that her very being strengthened them during both smooth and turbulent times. We need more Lois Lutzes around, more of her in our lives, at least in our souls, that motivate us to do the best and to be the best we can be, so that as we journey down that yellow brick road, we'll have the brains and the heart and the courage combined to give us the strength that Lois bequeathed to all of us. As Jewish tradition encourages us to say when someone like Lois dies, may her memory be a blessing, as were the days she walked and loved among us. Amen.
So I met Lois when she was 90 years old, well into her third act. In fact, some might even say 90 isn't even a third act anymore. It's more like your sixth or your seventh act. But no one in my family, I have to say, has ever lived that long. So I realized as I sat down to write this eulogy in remembrance of Lois that she was the first nonagenarian, the very first 90-year-old that I ever met. And at the time that I met Lois, I was just barely 30 years old. But I will never forget the way that Lois Lutz treated me and spoke to me. Like most women of her generation, actually, in my experience, who we call the greatest generation. Elders I have been so blessed to know by serving this congregation. Lois always showed me a fierce kind of encouragement. She was always ready to remind me that I was capable and skilled, that she appreciated my words, that I didn't need to defer to anyone, to no man, but could speak my mind. I have never felt more empowered as a woman in the pulpit than I do when the women of Lois's generation approach me after a service, because they always do seem to do so with that glint in their eye that says, "You are strong, sister. Don't forget it." I don't think that glint and that spirit or those words had so much to do with me, though. I think they had to do with her. I think they had to do with what Lois lived through in her life, with what she had learned about how to persevere, with what she wanted to teach me and her family and all of us about how to make it through nearly 100 years of life on this earth. In the time that I knew Lois, I saw what I can only describe as a fierce and easy joy about her. We've already talked about her forthrightness, her vibrance, her sense of humor. But I was also blessed to see what I would call her unfolding late in life, a kind of loosening of the grip that perhaps only comes in your 6th or your 7th act. I have a quote given to me by a friend that hangs in my kitchen. It's a quote from the ancient Roman poet Horace that says, "Take as a gift whatever the day brings forth." A 2,000-year-old piece of wisdom that is still most days aspirational for a 39-year-old me. But I saw Lois living that way. At least in the time that I knew her, she took as a gift whatever the day brought forth. If you are a part of our congregation here, and perhaps if you are family as well, you know this story. Kathleen shared it with us now about 5 years ago. It's the story of the time when Lois took a 3 a.m. ambulance ride to the hospital for a frightening ailment, the only remedy for which was a risky, invasive surgery. It was the kind of surgery often not recommended for a nonagenarian. But Lois decided she would give it a try. And to a somewhat worried surgeon, she gave her consent for the operation. But he wasn't sure. He went a few more rounds with her, really, we think, wanting to make sure that she knew and understood all of the risks involved. She did. And the following Sunday, here, after a successful surgery and a remarkable recovery, Lois's daughter, Kathleen, told us the story and shared with us Lois's parting words to that nervous doctor before the procedure, saying, "Doc, you do your best, and I'll do my best, and we'll see how it goes." A loosening of the grip. Getting to know Lois so late in her life, I was struck by the way her words often travel to us like this, through stories from others, through intermediaries, through the people that she loves and loved, but also through her own writing. Lois was so lucky to have the gift of not just family, but also dear friends who were like family. Rabbi Grumbacher, Merle Bowe, and the late Robert Merritt, all of whom helped her record so many stories from her life on paper. Her son-in-law, Pete, was the one who suggested she join this memoir group. And it became, in her own words, which she left with us, so many things to me, she said. A chance to revisit happy times that have long since left my conscious memory, an opportunity to reevaluate old thoughts and actions and to learn. And she said, a gentle way to form my thoughts toward a happier existence while being a member of this community of writers. In Lois's writing, she described herself as she was, as a survivor, as humble to a degree, but not subservient. Sounds right to me. She told stories about entering the working world to help support her young family, about rising through the ranks professionally, about receiving help and kindness along the way, and giving it back to care for grandkids and great-grandkids when family members needed support. A role that she said was the most pleasurable persona of mine, perhaps the best one of many. In one snippet of memoir writing, Lois talked about the passage of time and how we all take turns through this life. Sitting with her great-grandson, Duncan, who's now all grown up. She said, now he watches over me as I did for him, asking, am I warm enough? Can he help me as I walk? What do I need? What can he bring me? We all take turns, she said. Everybody takes a turn. And here she was, after all these years, at the end of her life, again, in her own words, just an ordinary person, still valuable in the eyes of God. I remember that next weekend, after Lois's fateful surgery appointment 5 years ago, when she returned for her first Sunday back here in Bell Hall, and Lois was the most popular person in the room that morning. I kept standing nearby waiting for her to not be talking with somebody else. It took a while. But I remember distinctly that morning, honestly, how struck I was by the light in her eyes and the smile on her face. I genuinely remember noticing how lovely her creamy, pale skin was as it folded around her eyes as she laughed. What a gift it is to be present for anyone's sixth or seventh act in this life. And when I finally beat my way through the crowds to talk with her, I asked Lois one of those annoying pastor questions that the minister isn't afraid to ask. I knelt down next to her and I said, "Lois, were you scared?" She paused for a moment to consider the question. And her first response, like Lois, was plain. "There wasn't time to be scared," she said. But then she thought some more, and she looked back at me and said with careful measure, "I don't think there's anything to be scared of. It's going to happen. And I don't know, maybe what comes next will be even better." When she left that morning, we said, "We'll see you next week, Lois." And she said, "Oh yes, God willing." The openness of an easy joy, the fierceness and strength of a willingness to grapple honestly with whatever the day brings forth. That's what I will carry with me from knowing Lois Lutz. And whatever you may carry from your time with your mom, with your Grammy, with your friend, from your time with Lois, may the memories that you carry aid you and strengthen you. May you remember that a good life is possible, even though some chapters will be hard. And may you remember to take the gift of each day as it comes. Lois's daughter, Kathleen, would like to join us now on stage to offer a reading from Lois's words from one of her mother's own memoirs.
Thank you. I want to read you a small memoir snippet my mom wrote 3 years ago. But first, I need to give you a little, very small backstory. My mother married her paperboy. She and my dad, Alton, met when they were in middle school in Michigan, and they married during World War II when my dad enlisted. They really were members of what the journalist Tom Brokaw called the greatest generation. My dad died the year just after their 65th anniversary party at our house in Delaware. Mom's mantra had always been, pay your blessings forward. After Daddy died, Mom considered it a blessing to meet our dear friend, Merle Bowe, and to begin writing in Merle's memoir class. Out of the 200 memoir snippets that Mom has paid forward, we chose 2 as a very short reading to share with you today. We placed the originals on slides to celebrate her lovely left-handed 95-year-old handwriting. So the first slide, please. And then I'm going to read. At 95, it would be well to take stock of unfinished business, because she wrote this to a 90-some citizen. You really have little time left to do so. First, forgive yourself for all the times you have inadvertently and unintentionally hurt others. At the time, it seemed reasonable to defend yourself. Looking back, not so much. Second, forgive those who harmed or offended you. They probably didn't understand your circumstances any more than you did theirs. Third, sincerely appreciate how lucky you are to have been given so many years to enjoy the beauties of the earth and to have the opportunity to leave it better than you found it, no matter how little that might be. Fourth, be grateful for the several generations of young ones you have fostered who are now doing all the right things for themselves, their families, and their fellow men. After all, didn't you set them the best example you could? And perhaps, best of all, relax. Look forward to the next step with joy and anticipation. You've lived through some interesting times here on earth. How can the new ones be anything less? And slide. Lois and Alton were married 66 years. Granny and Granddaddy had moved 8 times in their life. And the next slide, please. I'm going to paraphrase what, as we all view the slide. So that their move number 9 will be to join Mom's ashes with Daddy's. They will go, Granny and Granddaddy, into the wind.
When I was a boy each week, Sunday we would go to church and pay attention to the priest, and he would read the holy word and consecrate the holy bread, and everyone would kneel and bow. Today the only difference is everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. When I was in Sunday school, we would learn about the time Moses split the sea in two, and Jesus made the water wine. And I remember feeling sad. Miracles don't happen still, but now I can't keep track, 'cause everything's a miracle. 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 Everything's a miracle more. small, but an even better magic trick is that anything is here at all. So the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, but finding where there isn't one. When holy water was rare at best, I barely wet my fingertips. Now I have to hold my breath like I'm swimming in a sea of it. It used to be a world out there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Everything, everything, everything is holy now. Read a questioning child's face, say it's not a testament, that'd be very hard to say. See another new morning come, say it's not a sacrament, I tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood, I saw a little red-winged bird shining like a burning bush and singing like a scripture verse. It made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out, how things have changed since then, 'cause everything is holy now. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now.
When we began our service today, we lit a flame to symbolize that spark of God that lived in Lois. And we will leave that flame now. We will leave it to burn out on its own time, something we cannot control, for we all take our turn. Remembering today that there is one thing that cannot be snuffed out or extinguished, that will not disappear, which is the enduring connection between Lois's life and our own. Taking a breath now, perhaps if you feel comfortable even closing your eyes, we'll take just a few moments of silence. A few moments, perhaps if you wish to say a prayer in your own heart, if you have some words that you wish you could have shared with Lois while she was here, hold those words and those feelings silently in your heart now. And as we breathe together here in our grief, with our love, remember as you go forth today that every breath that you will take for the rest of your life, every breath you take connects you with everyone who has ever lived. Every breath that you take will connect you with everyone alive now on this earth and everyone who will ever be. The breath that you take in is the same one that Lois drew for all the days of her life. and this breath holds us all. May we remember Lois for all of our days, how blessed we are that we got to share some of our time on this earth together. And may the love that we hold that breaks our hearts now, may it continue to flow freely to one another, to our own families, big and complicated, blood and choice, to our friends and our communities. And may the gifts that Lois shared with each of us be paid forward, and paid forward well. May you all live in blessing. Amen. As we leave today, the band will play some more music, and I want to thank you all for joining us. Thank the family for setting a table for us to continue sharing conversations and stories. You're all invited to join us for a reception straight out these doors to the right in our dining hall. Thank you again.
Thank you.